Content warning. The Wards of the State podcast may contain material that may be harmful or traumatizing to some audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Alrighty. Hey y'all. I always be acting like I'm prepared, y'all, but I'm not always prepared. Sometimes I'm just like y'all, just like, alrighty. Well, welcome back to another episode of Wards of the State. Y'all, we are pushing through. We are going upwards to almost 100 lived experiences here on the podcast, and I'm really excited to continue to share this. Make sure you guys are checking out the links if you would like to share your story. We have some openings up for the spring here in 2025. Also, if you've already been on the show and you want to do an update, send us an email again because we will love to do updates on the episodes. I get a lot of folks who listen to the show and they send me DMs or good emails and they want more information or they want an update. And unfortunately, the show's gotten so large where like before when there was only like 10 or 20 people, I could keep up with everybody. But now that there's been like almost 100 people with 100 episodes, it's really hard. So if you're listening and you've already been on the show and you've had an update to your life that you would like to share, definitely fill out the form. You guys you remember the form that you filled out. Fill out the form again. Let us know that you want to come to an update. Speaking of updates, y'all, we are 11 days away from our first book tour signing date, which will be in Las Vegas, Nevada on March 22nd. I am so excited, y'all. It is completely free. So if you're in the Vegas area and you want to come do a meet and greet, we're going to do a book reading, book signings. We're going to have coffee, maybe some snacks, just chillax a little bit. Make sure you check out. It will be at Coppercat Books. I believe it's in Henderson, Nevada. So if you're in the Las Vegas area and you want to come hang out with us on March 22nd, 2025, click the link in the show notes. There is an Eventbrite for you to get tickets. They're free tickets. You can also donate if you would like to. But we wanted to see, these are small venues. So I don't want about 100 of y'all showing up because then I can't let everybody in. So make sure you grab your ticket, your free ticket, so we know how many people are showing up. We do have a few tickets already purchased. So I know a few people are coming. So if you want to come, once again, that is at Coppercat Books in Henderson, Nevada, March 22nd, 2025. And I think that those are all. We do have some other dates coming up, but I will let y'all know about those as they come closer. But that's the closest one that we do have. As always, make sure you're checking out all the links in my bio and keep up to date. Oh, one last thing. We have a new monthly newsletter, y'all. And it's really something that I find special. It's simple. It's about 4 to 5 pieces of information. It's usually a news article that you should be looking at in the foster care and adoption world. We also do a light shiner, light leading the way. So that's just like a activist or someone who is working in the system that is doing real work. We're highlighting their stories and connecting their social media. And then also my favorite is that we do media reviews. So like we suggest different movies to watch. I think this month we did that series that just came out on Hulu about I can never remember her name. I always want to say the Heart Lady. What is her name? The lady that was on YouTube abusing all her kids, and she was real famous.
Oh,
and then
Ruby
Ruby
something.
Frank. Yes.
Yes.
I can never remember that lady's name to save my life. I can never
Yeah.
remember that lady's name. But yeah, we were discussing. Actually, y'all, we're gonna watch that later today. Well, you guys don't hear it on social media, but if you're watching social media now, we're gonna watch that later today. For movie night. So anyways, guys, those are all the updates. Thank y'all so much. Make sure that you are leaving a 5-star rating review and you are subscribing to our podcast and sharing with family and friends. But without further ado, I do want to introduce the next guest of the show. Jasmine, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored. Even though the devil's trying to keep me down, still I rise, right?
Well, the devil is a liar.
Yeah. Oh, so Jasmine, so let's just jump right into it. So looking
Okay.
at your form, it says that you were part of the child welfare system, but it didn't really specify. So
Yes.
just kind of start off with your experience.
Okay, so at the age of 5, I am the middle child. I have 2 older siblings and a younger sibling. My mom was a drug addict, and so she gave lent, or maybe she was forced to give our house to the drug lords in our neighborhood. I'm from Baltimore City, by the way. And at the age of 5, the police came and kicked down our door and took us from the home and put us in foster care.
Mm. Oh. So, was
Yep.
there any how many siblings do you have?
I have 3 total.
And you were in the middle. So,
I'm the middle, yes.
was there any other violence or other things that might make them do that?
Um, so the thing was, my mom was really, really heavy on drugs, so it was actually my older 2 siblings who took care of us. And they weren't that far older. They weren't that much older than us. My oldest brother, he would actually go to other neighbors and run into their home and raid their fridge, and that's how we ate most days. And then my oldest sister, she's the one who kept our looks and stuff together as far as making sure we were neat and clean. But I think it just was the house being a drug house, and they, yeah, I guess we're trying to clean the city
It
up.
sounds like a lot similar to my story, except my mom was she was the dealer. Like we didn't have a drug, she was the
Oh,
dealer. So
okay.
it was
Okay.
just as violent because people were trying to rob our house because we had
Yes.
all this her stash there. So it was like opposite danger, but still danger. And you
Understood.
know, just like your older siblings, my sister was kind of like our mom. She made
Hmm.
sure that we were okay, and
Yep.
she fed us. And like you were saying, like we used to collect pop bottles. I'm from Michigan, so you could get 10
Okay.
cents per pop bottle. So
Okay.
we used to go around the neighborhood, like picking up pop bottles out of the lot. So like knocking on people's doors, seeing if they would give us any of their pop bottles, just so we could
Hmm.
return those into the store and like get
Yes.
cereal and Pop Tarts. So I can definitely
Okay.
feel you on that.
Hmm.
So you were 5 when you were removed.
Yes.
Did your mother get offered? Because you said she was actively in addiction. Did she get offered any
Hmm.
resources for part of her
Um,
parenting plan?
they took her to prison. They
Damn.
charged her as one of yes, they charged her as one of the drug lords. I forget the correct term that they used, and they actually locked her up. She was in prison for years. She actually
Was
wrote
she
the.
was she was she like dealing or was she just a user?
She was a user. Yeah, I don't think that. I think she was so strung out she didn't have the capacity to even function as far
Like
as the
defend
dealer is
herself.
concerned. Correct.
Oh
Yeah,
my
and
god.
actually, on my book on the cover page, it's an article by the Baltimore Sun. My mom, that's a real article. When she was locked up, she didn't know where we were, so she wrote the newspaper to try to get them to find us.
Jasmine has a book called Self-Help Guide: How to Survive the Foster Care System, and it looks like a pretty good ebook at this point. So I'm excited to grab it. I want to hear more about it. Um, because you know what, we do need some self-help books, some guides. We need
Yes,
some
yes,
because nobody knows what they're doing. No one
yes.
knows what
You're
they're
right.
doing.
It's
So you entered the foster care system. How was that experience? And did
mhm.
you stick with your siblings through the system, or did you guys get quickly
Actually
separated?
they separated all of us. The day that they kicked in the door, they actually pulled us apart from each other and placed us in separate police cars.
Wow.
Um, to the point where years had went by and I blacked out and forgot that I had siblings. I didn't get reintroduced to my siblings until about 4 years later when my oldest brother saw me walking and approached me, and I had to, it's like I completely blacked out. I didn't know why I couldn't remember that I had siblings until years later when I was an adult and I was in therapy and they told me the terminology and how the brain functions. But I didn't, I forgot about them.
Wow.
Hmm. Yep.
So my siblings, we were also removed together, but
Hmm.
we stayed first foster home and then our first group home placement at Child Haven. But then we were separated into twos. Like my brothers went together, me and my sister went together. Then eventually we were all separated. But it's just so crazy how they just separate
Hmm.
children. And you know, also a lot of people don't know that when you are a foster child and you're in a sibling group of 2 or more and you're Black, you are automatically classified as a level 3. So that means
Hmm.
you're automatically put into therapeutic foster homes, which usually means that like more
Yep.
abuse is happening or you see like crazy things because there are other kids who are truly higher levels than you who are
That is
experiencing
correct
trauma
because I was required to go to a therapeutic home.
because you were part of a
Hmm.
sibling group of 2 or more. So how kind
Correct.
of talk about your foster homes? How was your experience in
So
foster care?
the first foster home that I went to, it was like a shock factor. It was a two-parent household, and I used to compare it to the Cosbys versus like the good times, if that makes sense. Like, I came from Baltimore City. Everybody whose mom was on the street also was on drugs. So that life was normal to me. I didn't know that the way we lived was wrong. It wasn't until I got into foster care that I realized that people live differently from me, and that I was removed from the home because we wasn't raised properly. So a two-parent home. I was introduced into church. I was an usher. Um, and so it was a totally different structure. I never had to worry about where food was coming from, clothes. It just was like a complete 180.
I love that for you.
Yes.
And, and
Until,
some people, well, wait, I was going to say something nice.
yes,
Let me not speak
until
too soon. Into what,
um
Jasmine?
the foster parent, she died in a car accident.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And so I
I thought
was,
I thought you were gonna say it too, like she abused us and locked us in a
yes,
basement.
no.
I thought it was gonna be something like that. I would still say no, I'm good. It's good to hear that there are and there were some great foster parents. And I tell people that all the time. Like
Mhm.
there are truly some angels in foster.
Yes.
There's some demons too, but there truly are some angels
Oh,
in foster care
absolutely.
doing
Yeah.
great work,
Yeah.
doing fantastic work. And I'm sorry to hear y'all's loss. So did she get
Yes.
into this accident while you were in her care?
I was in her care. She was actually going to go say bye to her sick mother who was transitioning, and she got into an accident and completely, she died. So then it was a panic for me because I'm trying to figure out what's next for me. But because
And
I
how
was
old are
considered
you at
a,
this time?
I am 7, 8.
God, that's a
Yes.
lot for a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And then
then
you were considered what?
so she had a aunt who, a older elderly aunt who was already licensed, and I was considered a good kid. And so she signed up to get me so I can stay in the family. And then that was okay, but they were older. So everything was like really, really boring. And I know not the worst problem to have, but um I just felt really isolated. Then remember when I told you that I saw my brother, he approached me, and that's when I remember I had siblings. So I advocated for myself via social worker and asked to meet my siblings. Once I met them, my older sister's foster mom asked if I can come live with them so we can grow up together. So I chose to leave that home to be with my sister until I got there and she was already removed.
What?
Yeah,
So she's like, "Come live with us, and you can grow up with your sister." And you get there, your
yeah,
sister's not even there.
yeah. And I did not know
And
for
you,
weeks. They lied to me and told me that she was at camp and she'll come, and oh, camp wanted to keep her longer and she'll come. And then eventually, about 3 weeks in, when I was settled and anticipating her, because they were strangers to me, she was the only one that I was familiar with. Because when I found out about them, I got to have visitations and stuff. And then they told me that an incident had happened and she was removed from the home. I was already there then, so I just stayed.
oh my goodness,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. So how was that experience at that new home?
Oh, so I will say, it is angel and devil. It was a physically abusive home. I was sexually abused in this home, but and I talk a lot about this in the book. It's like polarizing, and I know if you aren't in the foster care system, you wouldn't understand this. Outside of the abuse, the physical and the sexual abuse, the home was a good home. And what I mean by that is when you go to these foster parenting events, you meet other foster children and respite, and you see how they live. I have went to other foster homes just visiting where they had locks on the fridge, or the kid is so high off medicine they don't know their own name. They're literally slobbing in the corner. But just last week we was playing outside and they wasn't like that. So that's what I mean about a good home. I was taught very valuable life lessons. I was taught good structure. I felt like I was prepared for the world when I transitioned out of foster care because of this one home. It just was a physically abusive home.
That's hard to eat up as,
Yes.
also a survivor. I can see where you're
Yes.
coming from, but
Hmm.
personally, I wouldn't consider anything that like I can see the silver lining because I'm also very much a silver lining person as well.
Yes.
And I say similar things about my experience, like with my adoption, horrible experience, but like I got education, I got caught up,
Hmm.
that let me be who I am today, right?
Hmm.
Um, but it's just like it's hard to swallow to see, like, is that where the bar is? Like, I think
Mhm.
that's just
Yeah. Yep.
the bar is so far in hell that,
Mhm.
like, even I'm struggling to being like, "Well, you know what? You're not
Yep.
lying."
Yeah,
Like,
you really gotta
I
take
have
the
seen
good
the
with
locked
it.
fridges
Mhm.
and the kids
Yes.
locked in basements and the kids
Yes.
slobbering in the like, so I'm like, "Okay,
Mhm.
if the abuse is the only thing that you have to deal with, then you might have to deal with it." But, like,
Yes.
my educated heart's like, "God damn, is that how low expectations are for
Mhm.
foster youth?" And
Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah,
Yeah.
that's how low the
Yeah.
expectations are.
Because when I say that to people, their mouth is ajar, but you experience a violation. I understand, but you haven't seen the other violations, that I've seen. So unfortunately, and I talk about this in my book too. I felt like a trained dog. I felt like I was trained to like. It was one time that I got so tired of the physical abuse that I called my social worker and said, "Please, I want to move. I want to go to a different home." Verbatim, he said to me, "This is as good as it gets. You might want to think about that."
Damn.
Yep. Yep.
They pulled that on me too when I won
Yep.
because during the year of our visitation with my adoptive parents, there were some things that were rocky, and even my
Hmm.
sister and my siblings were like, "Hey, we have some red signs," and my social worker was like, "Carl, you're 9 years old. You're probably going to end up here or in a group home with your brothers. So like this is
I was 10.
like you
Yep.
said, this is you're lucky. You're lucky that
Yep.
you even got picked." And I was
Yep.
like, "Well, goddamn." Well,
That's how it is.
and then I'm like,
Yep.
"Well, it can't get worse. It got worse."
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So you stay with them from 10 to 18 in the same foster
And
home?
yes. And then I went to an independent program where I kind of had my own place and they helped me financially with that. But from 10 to 18, I stayed in that home.
And were you said so there was some abuse? Was it directly from the parents
Yes.
or was it from other kids in the home?
So my foster parent had two biological children, and they were superior to me, and it was known. Like it was a saying growing up to treat the foster children like your own. Yes, I was treated like them until it came time. Like if I did something to them, or it was a disagreement, it was automatically her kids before me. It was known. And then if I did something that she found totally unacceptable, her or her oldest daughter would tell family members like cousins and stuff my age or older to fight me. Yeah. So physical fights or and if I would fight back, I would get jumped.
I had that experience in foster care at
Yes.
the Beasleys. I wrote about it. It's called
Mm-hmm.
Beaster Beast. And they would have like their kids fight us. And
Yep.
like it was very much the same, and
Mm-hmm.
then they would pit us, me and my sister, against each other,
Yep.
and it was really crazy, and I got jumped
Same.
whenever I fought back, and they would just because then they had their son try to fight me, bitch. I might be gay and I might be scrawny, but I grew up in the inner cities of Detroit. I will beat you to the
Oh.
white meat shows. That's how I
Yep.
was raised. Okay, you don't
Yeah.
stop fighting into that white meat show,
Yeah.
and I beat his ass. Then they gonna get me jumped by like they three teenage boys. Now that's not a fair fight.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
a fair fight, and I beat his ass. Now y'all upset.
Mm.
Now you
Yeah. So
upset.
some days I had to choose between if I felt like getting jumped and fighting back, or if I just took it because I didn't want to get jumped. And it's a hard pill to swallow. You're never at peace, you know.
Mm. So during this
Hmm.
time from 10 to 18, you said that you had advocated for yourself to see your siblings. Were you able to visit
Yes.
with your siblings during that time?
Correct. I knew my oldest sister and my younger brother growing up. My oldest
And did
brother,
you
they
ever
did
meet
not
the sister
allow.
that you were supposed to meet? Did
I,
you ever meet her?
I did. I did. We actually have a very close relationship today.
That's awesome. I love that.
And then my oldest brother, I wasn't able to have visitations with him because he actually kept running away from the foster homes and the group homes. So the Baltimore City just declared him a runaway, and because he was considered a runaway, they didn't allow me to speak with him and have visitations with him.
AKA when they do that, y'all, they just stop looking for the kids. They'll just say, "Oh, they ran
Correct, because
away.
they tired of them running
They ran
away.
away."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
So
So
I'm
true.
so happy
Yeah.
to hear that you finally got to meet your sister that you were supposed to be with. Now, have you ever talked to her about
Yes.
her experience in that home and what happened?
Oh yeah, it's totally different. She was older, so she hated us growing up. my me and my younger brother because we were her responsibility. And as a child herself, she remembers more. It was a lot that I couldn't remember growing up. And then she also experienced group homes. I never experienced group homes. So she had it way worse. All of my siblings had it way worse than I did.
I kinda feel like I feel like that for you too, but then I also would like to I also remind all people that it's not a trauma Olympic, right? And
Hmm.
our traumas affect us differently. Because my siblings always
Correct.
used to say, they're like, "Oh, Carlos, you got adopted, you got it way better." I was like, "No, I didn't. It's just a different
Hmm.
perspective," you know? If you look at my perspective, it wasn't better. I got better access to education, possibly, yes. Better structure, like you said, yes. But then I had to deal with severe racism. I had to deal with
Hmm.
being the only black person in my town. I had to deal with not
Hmm.
knowing my family anymore. And they all like got to stay together. Like they all ended up running away or aging out and going back to my mom. So like they got their mom, they got their family, and I had lost that. And it took years for them, especially my brothers, to understand that adoption didn't offer me a better life, but just a
Hmm.
different one. And even like foster care, like permanent foster care situations like yours doesn't always offer a better life than like a group home. Cause I've been in group home facilities. Some of them are horrible and then some of them are great. But then I've also been in foster homes. I was in 37. Most of them were horrible. Right. So I
Hmm.
can see how you definitely can hear that from her. And how does that affect you when you heard that from her, when you knew what you went through?
Well, I'm glad that you said it's not a trauma Olympics because my biological family, they consider my sister and I to be bougie. They say that we always act like my oldest brother, my youngest brother, sort of kept doing it, went through life and running away and kept going back to my mom. And it got so bad to the point where my mom asked me one time, why didn't I run away from foster care and come back to her? I was 5. That's a strange question to ask a child. And it wasn't my responsibility to think about those things. If we were raised properly, we wouldn't have been in a situation where I had to make that choice. Yeah, so we're kind of looked at, you know, how people are looked at as like the black sheep. We're kind of looked at as we think that we're better, but it's not that. I just think that we were raised differently, you know?
Yep. Oh, I absolutely
Yeah.
under my family says the same thing. "Oh, you're
Hmm.
bougie. Oh, you
Yes.
talk white, or
Yeah.
you think you're." It's not. I was just raised different than y'all. And the thing is, I
Correct.
was at the heart, I was raised for the first 7 years with my siblings. So I know my siblings. I know who
Hmm.
my family is. I know who we are as a family. But things changed. I changed. I
Yes.
had different opportunities. I also had different
Hmm.
challenges growing up,
Yep.
right? So yeah, and it's kinda hard to kinda accept that I'm not gonna be the same person that you knew when I was 7 years old. I'm now in my 30s, so I got a
Correct.
whole different life
Yes.
path. But, it always
Yes.
happens. They all the family is always talk see, that's why I don't really fuck with my family. I love my family, but, like, where the fuck were y'all? And that's why,
Yep.
like, my aunties and uncles, I'm like, "Shut the fuck up," honestly, like, "Shut the
Yep.
fuck up," because y'all sat here and watched your
It's.
sister go through this and then didn't have nothing to say. Y'all took
Hmm.
in other cousins, like my auntie, she took in my cousin, adopted him, but then when it came to me as kids, she goes, "Oh, I'm not gonna take him if there's no check attached to it." And the state offered to have her take us because she was also a licensed foster parent. They weren't offering
Oh
to give her
wow.
no stipend. And she says, "No, I'm not gonna take him without the check." Which as an adult, okay, I can see, like,
Hmm.
4 kids, you ain't getting no help. She's a single mom, like, got it. I understand. But bitch, at least take one. Like, and then but
Correct.
as she's older now, as I speak to her, she's kinda I've been in the position that she was where I had to take in my niece, and
Okay.
it was one of those things where my niece called me in the middle of the night saying, "Uncle, I need you to come get me. Hop on a flight. I'm in danger." I was on there the next flight I could get on the flight. Her
Wow.
mom was like, "Yeah, she's in danger. Can you take her?" And I was like, "It has
Yes.
to be really bad if the mom was like, 'Can you please take her?'"
We
So
have we have such similar stories. I had to take in my niece too. My oldest brother's daughter. I actually took her in.
my oldest brother's daughter.
Yep. Same.
It's
Yep.
always he ain't doing shit right. His baby
Yeah.
mama ain't doing shit right.
Mhm.
And my niece is 13 years old and she's an innocent child. And then I took her in and I can understood because I got no help from the government. I got no help
Mhm.
from CPS. I got no help from family. She's a teenage girl. Like she wants things. She wants clothes. And I wanted to give her everything that she didn't have. But then I kind of saw that animosity that my aunt had was like, this is not my fucking child. And
Mhm.
it really got to when her mom was calling me, cussing me out because I was posting family pictures on Facebook or like like it's she's part of our family. I'm going to and
Yes.
I'm not I don't post like onto my social media because I do have large social media platforms. So as
Mhm.
far as like on TikTok, Instagram stuff, I don't post. But on Facebook, where only my family follows me, yeah, I am. And then when I talk on social media, I will let people know like I'm taking care of my
Mhm.
niece. And she was like, "You and your F slur husband all want kids." So
Oh.
we've never wanted children. We've always like
Mhm.
I had to convince my husband to allow her in my house. He's been team note in our vows. I married this man. He
Mhm.
says, "You vowed to me that we will never have." That was in our marriage vows. I said, "We'll
Wow.
never have children." And he says, "Not have
Wow.
children, not bring children into our home, not raise any children." He's just always been like, "I don't want kids," and that was part
Mhm.
of my little marriage vows. And a lot of folks also don't talk about like how it affects marriages, bringing in people and relationships, bringing in
Yep.
family. Because at the end of the day, you my husband, you my man, but that's my aunt, that's my niece.
Mhm. Mhm.
The way
Yep.
my morals and ethics stand, bitch, I would have been in a hotel room with my niece, and you
Yes.
could stay in the house because I would have left you.
Cause
But my
you
husband also knows that about me.
yeah, you lived it, so you feel that way. Yeah. Yeah.
I know what
Mhm.
happens when family
Yep.
don't step up. So,
Yes.
but I also kind of understand when my aunt was like, "That's not my responsibility." And
Mhm.
that's what she said. She goes, "I understand how you feel, but ultimately, I didn't lay down and have kids.
Yep.
You weren't my responsibility." How do you feel about that, even with your family? And like circling back now, years later, how do they say
Mhm.
anything to you about how you were raised, or get over it, or you should be grateful, or
So
whatever?
the interesting part is it's a generational cycle for my family. My mom was also a foster child. Her mom and foster children, like uh, um, the women abandoning their children in my family is generational. Also, addiction is generational. So my mom was a foster child. She was separated from her siblings, and she actually was a twin, which is very strange that they didn't keep them together. And then what's sad about that is she had 15 brothers and sisters. And the fact that none of them could step up and put their brains together to get us was very, very heartbreaking, especially because she called her twin sister the day that they kicked in the door and asked, and she said no, she couldn't handle it. Was four of us, but she couldn't handle it. Now that it's generational and I have my niece, my oldest brother was killed. Street life, you know the story. 5 a.m. gunned down. And her mom, drugs. So my niece was raised by grandparents for a little while, then COVID hit, and they're in the medical field. And older parents, COVID, being in the medical field, they called me one day and asked if I can get her, and I promise you, she was there the next morning. We live in two totally different states. Um, I didn't have the financial support from the grandparents, so that was a little different for me. And I also had my own business, so the financial aspect wasn't a struggle for me. It was the psychological of being a single woman with a business, and you get to maneuver the world as you see fit, and then you're a mom to a 6-year-old child. Your world changes. And 6-year-old with behavioral problems because she has a deceased dad and a mom that's on drugs. Eventually her mom passes away. You understand? So it's like you going through this with her. She now has two parents gone, and we're here.
But she has an auntie that loves her,
Mhm.
and that's amazing.
Yes, she has an auntie
And
that loves
that's
her.
right.
Yes,
And that's what we talk about when
yes.
we talk about community and when we talk about the alternatives. We can't prevent our siblings from making bad decisions, right? But that's
Unfortunately, yes,
I wish I could just wave a magic wand and have my brothers
yes.
get it together. My sister has passed too,
Mhm.
and she was intoxicated and high, and she got in a car with her fiance and my mom, and wrapped the car around a light pole and just unalived all of them. So
Oh
like our
man,
stories are really similar when it comes to
similar.
just
Oh
like
yeah.
just
Mhm.
tragedy after tragedy after
Mhm.
luckily I still got my brothers, but you know what? That 5 o'clock thing don't sound much different than what my brothers be doing. So I'm waiting for that
Yes,
any
I
day now
I have
anyway.
I have faced, I feel like, so much tragedy, so much death that at one point I prayed to God and said, please, I do not want to go to another funeral. And it's so interesting because we do have similar stories, but as you know, a lot of foster children, they come from many different walks of life. So it's a comfort to me to know, unfortunately, that you have to endure so much, but that we are similar in our stories. Yeah.
And you know, and it's the strong ones that survive. I'll be honest,
Yes.
because there's no difference between me and my siblings. We came from the same crack womb. We came from the
Mhm.
same crack environment.
Yep.
As we got older, like from 7 and above, yes, our circumstances changed.
Mhm.
But I truly believe by the time that you're 7, 8, you kind of are who you gonna be.
Yep.
There's some changes that can be like tweaked here and there, but like you as a person, that foundation of who you are, that's already been set, right?
Yes.
And I believe that my mother, one good thing that my mother did is she did set confidence in all of her children.
Mhm.
Um, she was an entrepreneur, like not the right kind, but she was. She
Right.
was.
Understood.
No, like, but the thing was, she was
Mhm.
never supposed to do that. My dad was the hustler, and she was a
Okay.
stay-at-home mom, and then he got picked up on some low drug charges. Ended up doing like 10 years, and she was there, a single mom with 4 kids. At that moment, she wasn't even on Section 8 because they were making a lot of money in the 90s. Like I remember
Mhm.
my mom like had all the leopard prints, the black and gold, the leather couch. Like we had a good life when it came to like
Yes.
material things. Like we had all the new game systems. We had all the new clothes, FUBU,
Mhm.
all of this. But when it came to like parenting, no, she was young. She was in her 20s, her early 20s with 4 kids. Her boyfriend, one of the largest drug dealers in Detroit. So like she was having a blast. Like if she didn't have
Yeah.
any kids, like that would be a life, girl. Like do that. But you have children.
Yes. Mhm.
You have
Yeah.
children that you need to take care of, and your oldest
Mhm.
daughter is not their mother. And
Right.
I think it takes people to really touch so much trauma in your life, like you said, where I've I don't believe in God specifically, but I believe in the
Mhm.
universe, I believe in energy. And I'm just like, damn, when's enough enough? Like what can one person actually, how much pain and trauma can one person? And then it kind of
Mhm.
like scares me because like you said, there's so many funerals, my uncles, my
Oh,
aunts.
yes.
And then to me, I just go and I was like, all right. And then I just walk the fuck home. And to
Mhm.
me, I'm like, am I that desensitized by this trauma and what has happened in my life? Because other family members are bawling and they can't get, even with my mom's
Yep.
funeral, I was able to sit there, talk about how much caskets were, sit there, talk about all the finances to get all, that was my job because my brothers weren't
Mhm.
having it. They were just inconsolable. And then they kind of flipped it on me. They're like, why aren't you upset? And I told them, I said, my mom died the day that CPS told me I would never see her again. And then I got
Absolutely.
adopted. So
Yep.
the fact that I
Yeah.
had her again, that was kinda like a little mini miracle. I was like, "Thanks, God. I appreciate
Mhm.
this." But that feeling of her that loss, I had already grieved her since I was an 8-year-old kid.
Oh, that is ooh, you should clip that. That is 100% accurate. Yeah, I'm
Is that
sure
not
that
accurate?
yeah, I'm sure that 98% of foster children feel that way. I felt like the day I actually talk about this in my book. The day that they kicked in the door and they literally ripped us out of each other's arms and put us in different police cars. I remember looking over the window, seeing my mom on the ground in handcuffs and the drug dealers that she was with too. And I remember saying to myself, okay, now you have to make sure you're okay from here.
Mm,
And at 5, and you making that promise to always make sure you're going to be okay, that's a big responsibility. Mhm.
I tell people that all the
Yep.
time. People always
Yep.
ask me, they say, and I hate this question. They say, how did you become successful and what do you give your success to? Like why did you become successful? And I always say because I promised that little boy that if you just hang on, I will make sure everything that you went through was worth it.
Yep.
If you just hang on, little man. And I
Ooh,
said
that's
I did it for
powerful.
me.
Yeah. Yep.
Because there was nothing else I could tell him.
Yep.
He was finna get fucked up, bro. Like
Mhm.
I'm like just like we laugh about it now, but it's true.
It's true.
Just
Yeah.
hang
Yep.
on, just hang on, and
Yep.
this won't be your life forever. And when
Yeah.
you get in control, you
Mhm.
gonna have this.
Yep.
Jasmine, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, I do want to get more depth in your being raised as a foster youth, but I also want to talk about how being in foster care has affected you as an adult, as a
Ooh.
guardian parent,
Okay.
and how this has changed you. So we're gonna take a quick break, y'all, and we'll be right back. Hey, Light Shiners, welcome back to the show. Make sure you guys are checking us out on Spotify and subscribing to us on Spotify. Also, make sure you are listening to us on iHeartRadio. You can also catch the video podcast now on YouTube. Yeah, y'all, that's right. We have all of the episodes, I think, starting since like the last 5 episodes ago. We started posting them on YouTube. That was new for us. I've always been old school audio podcaster, and I was really nervous about doing video. Also, that means that I have to get dressed and look a little bit decent. But after I got my office set up, and I was like, a lot of people have been wanting the video podcast, and we've got some great responses on YouTube on the video podcast. So if you guys want to see these podcasts in video, check out the YouTube, and also make sure you're leaving a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star rating review on Apple Podcasts. Make sure I don't think we have any reviews, y'all. I've looked. I've asked for 4 weeks in a row. So who's gonna do it? Who's gonna do it? You gonna do it. Alrighty. So I think there's no other updates. I just need y'all to make sure that you're just liking, subscribing, and commenting everywhere you see us. And I appreciate it all the time. Alrighty, Jasmine. So before the break, we were talking about your experience, and oh my God, our situations and our scenarios are so similar. It's just so crazy. I'm just so happy to meet somebody else, who's a survivor of just a bunch of bullshit. Like, just a bunch of bullshit.
Facts.
But how has surviving the foster care system, how has that affected you as an adult? How has that affected your work life? Like, has that affected, because I know for me, a lot of people ask me what got me into advocacy. And honestly, I kind of fell into it after COVID because I was a professional actor, which I love doing
Okay.
commercial work. I did go to college. I worked in corporate America for a while.
Mhm.
I was just nobody can tell me what to do. I think that is a effect of the foster care system. I have lived my entire life of in foster care and adopted, being told what to do, how to do it, where to do it, when to eat,
Yep.
how to eat, what to eat.
Yep.
So even as an adult, when I became an adult, I was really like, ain't nobody gonna tell me shit. But
Mhm.
actually, when you start in these jobs, your managers can tell you some shit. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
And for me, I had a really hard time and I kept losing job after job after job until I figured out that I would have to figure out something that would make me money that I loved, but also let me be in control. So that's kind of how I got into content creating. And I started off on YouTube. I worked with this production company, Watch Cut. We had some viral videos that went like 70 million viral.
Wow.
And that kind of you probably have seen it. A couple of my videos back in the day, I smoked weed with a priest and a rabbi, and I was the atheist, and we talked about like politics and religion. We did like guess their ages. It was on YouTube, and we would have like lineup series where we would like guess people's gender, guess people's ages, guess who was like vegan or not. It was really cool, but it made me able to get an agent,
Mhm.
and then after my agent, I was able to become a commercial actor. And I did that for like 4 or 5 years until COVID happened. And then acting went out the door. And then I finished my book randomly during that time because we were in the middle of COVID. And I fell into this. I fell into advocacy because I just started talking about my experience like we're doing today. And
Wow.
people wanted to listen. And then I started doing more education. I started taking more courses, getting myself educated, not only on the lived experience part, but also on, like the practical and policy part. Cause I don't think that you
Mhm.
can advocate if you don't know the policies correct. And then
Correct.
you just need to know what you're talking. One thing's I think lived experience is fantastic, but if you don't have the policy and procedures down packed, you're just working off emotions. And if you work off emotions, you're not going to make any change, right?
Correct.
So I kind of want to know how growing up in foster care that affected me that way. How did growing up in foster care affect you in your personal life, in your professional life? How has that been an effect?
So I'll start with how it affects me in a positive light. I feel like I always had to be prepared. Remember, I'm always going to go back to the door being kicked in because that's the first time that I remember that life can change in an instant. And so for me, it has prepared me because now I feel like I have to be prepared for anything. And I have to be not only prepared, but I have to know how to pivot in any scenario. So I feel like I'm not going to say that I'm not at peace. I feel like I'm always prepared to pivot, or if life is a change, I'm always prepared not to go under. The way that it has affected me in my life. So I actually went to college later on. I was a competitive swimmer growing up in that abusive foster home that I talk about. And so I really gravitated towards because once I moved from Maryland to Atlanta, I wanted to work for myself. So I launched a swim school, which became really, really, really lucrative and highly successful. And I had no clue that it would turn out that way. It wasn't until I kind of worked my body into the ground because I was a one woman army, meaning that like I did everything I taught. I did all the paperwork behind the scenes. I ruptured my eardrum and it made me sit down. And when I sat down, I had an idea of now it's time. But growing up in foster care, I used to really be ashamed. I was teased a lot for it. And my foster home, the biological children in the home, they always made fun of like my mom. And so me, I always tried to I didn't disclose that I was a foster child. It was a need to know, and I was adamant about that. I felt like once my ear ruptured and I just had so much idle time, I wanted to pour my experience on the pages in hopes that it will help foster parents who are interested, but also foster children going through it who do not have a ear to hear and to listen. So that's how my book came about.
And how has your experience prepared you to be a guardianship parent?
Good question. I think that it prepared me easily because although it was my life changed within a phone call and the next day I was a mom, I knew all the things that I didn't want. I knew that I wanted a structured home, but I knew I didn't want a physically abusive home. I knew that I wanted my child to have, oh, my niece to say, to have the experience and to be exposed to different things. I also wanted them, you know how in foster care, they always make it seem like I'm going to love my child, I'm going to love the foster child like their own. Yeah, that's not really a good saying because every child needs something different. And I'm trying to make it known to my niece that I'm not trying to replace her mom, so to speak. I am just the parent that she has at this moment, if that makes sense. And I'm still
Absolutely.
figuring it out. It's day by day. It's a daily fight. It's a struggle, and it is exhausting.
Girl, I did it for
Yes,
a little under a year before my niece went back home with her mom, and I was exhausted is the
it's
word, and she
exhausting.
was
Yes,
13. She wasn't even 6. I cannot imagine how you did with a 6-year-old.
yes.
And that's a perfect way. I always tell parents to not try to replace their whatever child that's in their home, whether it be foster, adoptive, kinship.
Mhm.
You can never replace the birth parents. And the more you try to, the more that child will push back because it's just natural, right?
Correct.
Regardless of how dangerous or non dangerous the birth parent is, kids love their parents. And that's how we survive. And that's how we are humans, right?
Mhm.
But you can say like, "Hey, I'm a support system for you. I'm part of your village." Like you said, like, "I am one here for you now, and your parents do love you." And I always tell people who are doing any type of external childcare that positive reinforcements on birth parents will only end in a good result with you as a guardianship parent. The moment that you start bashing, the moment that you start ignoring their wants, needs, or questions about their birth families, that's when things go down the drain, right? That's when they can't trust you. So I love that you brought that point up.
Mhm.
Jasmine, did we have anything else? And I do want to talk a little bit more about your book, self help guide, how to survive the foster care system. You kind of told us how you created it. Uh,
Yes.
How do you use that in the work that you do today? So how is that guide? Can you give us an example of like how that guide is used? Is that for foster youth? Is that for foster parents? Is it for both?
Actually, I think that my book is so unique because I'm writing from a point of a foster parent and a foster child. So it's actually it's split chapters, and half of the chapter is dedicated to the child, and half of the chapter is dedicated to the parents. I felt like after I raised my niece, I had the advantage of understanding a little more from a parent's perspective. And I also wanted them to know what absolutely not to do, being that most people are first time foster parents, so you don't know what you're kind of signing up for. A lot of time a child can come in your home with a lot of psychological problems because of the homes that they experienced prior to. Like imagine the home that you come from and you've been physically abused or jumped. When you come into this home, you might jump if they're trying to reach out and give you a hug. So I think that people really underestimate a lot of the psychological uh, trauma that follows most foster children. That's how I use my book. I talk in depth about the internal things. It's good to provide a nice bed for them and clothes. That's half the battle. But a lot of it is like you got to go inward, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love is not enough,
Yep.
and a
Love is not
house is not
enough.
enough.
Yep.
Love is not enough. A house is not enough. And I tell
Yep.
people that all the time. And I love the point that you said that you have to treat children. You can't treat children as your own. Because
Correct.
if they were my kids, I would treat them a different way. If you have
Yep.
to treat children of who they are
Yep.
and where they come from,
Yep.
right? And when people try to force children as their own, that's where problems come in. Because the bitch, that ain't your baby.
Correct.
That's not your baby, right? But that could be a child that you love, that you want to help. But by helping them, you need to understand that you might have to change up change up your game plan. You might have to educate yourself a little bit more. You might have to educate yourself on culture, different identities, different anything that the child might need, because like you said, every child is different. So y'all, make sure that you check out Jasmine's book. I will put it in the link in the bio. If you can make sure you send me that email with the link for it, Jasmine, I'll put
Yes.
it in the bio here for the show so
Okay.
the listeners can grab it. But it is called, once again, it's called Self-Help Guide, How to Survive the Foster Care System. I'm so excited to read this ebook, y'all, because I might need it, because Chris, my husband and I are considering doing respite care. I just want
That
to.
would be so cool. Yeah.
It's been a couple months since my niece left, and the thing is, like, we bought this big ass house.
Yes.
Like, I have a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house, and it's just me and him.
Yes.
And I'm like, I have this whole extra room with a whole extra bathroom, and it just stays empty unless my friends come visit us. So I'm just like, maybe I can do like some, but I don't want babies. I would 15 to 21. I want older. Like, I want to help you. And even we were thinking about doing start extended foster care from 18 to 21, and they're adults. So like, I don't like, they ain't a kid. I'm pretty much like a glorified roommate. Okay,
Correct.
I'm gonna help you learn how to pay bills. I'm gonna help you get your car insurance. I'm gonna help you get a car, learn how to do financial literacy, get some credit. That's the thing. Like, I want to do that, and I feel like that is the need that I can fulfill, because I'm not the one with a 6-year-old. I commend you for doing that with your niece, because
Yes.
even with a 13-year-old, it wasn't as hard because she was older. So on date nights, we couldn't leave her at home for like 2 hours by herself, and not like,
Correct.
you can't leave a 6-year-old by herself at
Yes.
all, right? And like, we never, and like, even my friends like, you can leave her for overnight. I was like, nah, I never left her overnight. It was just like, I just don't believe in leaving children under like 16 overnight. I feel like that's weird. But there was a little bit more freedom. I feel like there's
Yes.
definitely a lot more freedom with teenage, or I can just drop her off at her friend's house or at the mall. Like, have fun, keep yourself safe. But
Uh-huh.
with 6-year-olds, like, that's a full-time commitment. That's zero
Yeah.
to 100 real quick,
Yes. Yeah.
real
It's
quick.
it's life
So
changing for sure.
definitely would like to commend you for that. And Jasmine, I ask every guest, I always ask them one question before the end of the show.
Okay.
What's one piece of advice that you would give a foster youth in your same scenario? What's one piece of advice you would give a foster youth?
That I'm gonna intertwine them. You have to advocate for yourself. Nobody will advocate for you like you. You have to utilize your voice. And in utilizing your voice, always bet on yourself. You can't go wrong betting on you.
Always bet on yourself.
Yep.
I love that. Well, thank you, Jasmine, for coming on the Ward to the State podcast. And thank you so much for sharing your lived experience in your foster care homes, as well as reunification. I think it's really important for us to have experiences where you said, like, it's like, I love this episode because it wasn't net positive, but it wasn't net negative either.
Correct.
Like, right? It's like there are just silver linings, and even in abuse, right? There are some things that can help in the future. So I think the way that you articulated that was so beautiful.
Thank
and I
you.
appreciate you
Appreciate
coming
that.
on no, my pleasure. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience. And y'all, make sure, I will put the link below for the book, but make sure you go grab Jasmine's book. Once again, it's called The Self-Help Guide, How to Survive the Foster Care System, because bitch, we need to survive this bitch, because a lot of kids ain't surviving. A lot of kids ain't surviving.
Correct.
They just aging out, and they're not. And here's the thing:
Yeah.
we no longer just want to survive.
Yeah.
We want to thrive.
Yes.
Okay. We're done with the surviving.
Yeah.
We want to thrive.
Yeah.
So, Jasmine, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I hope that it inspires other people to help foster youth thrive as well. I'll see you guys next week, light shiners, and as always shine your light.